All right, before we dive in, just a quick but important reminder. This entire breakdown is for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not financial advice. There are always significant risks, so please always do your own research. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on a really powerful dynamic that's been building in the PLAZM ecosystem, and that's supply compression. We're going to look at three separate automatic forces that are squeezing the available supply, and then we'll project out what the mathematical endgame of all this could actually look like. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this one number, 78%. This is the figure that defines the entire landscape right now. It represents the huge majority of all PLAZM tokens that are protected, locked away, or just plain removed from the immediately sellable supply. So let's break that 78% down. As you can see on the chart, it's not just one thing. 37% of the entire supply is staked, 19% is locked up in liquidity pools, and a full 22%, well, that's been permanently burned. When you add it all up, that leaves just 22% of the supply that's actually liquid and available. And here's the thing, this change has been incredibly fast. Just 66 days ago, 50% of the entire supply was liquid. Today, that's been crushed down to 22%. Now, this isn't random market noise. It's the direct result of three very powerful built-in forces. So, let's break down the first one. The first force is something we can call the staking vacuum, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It's a mechanism that actively pulls tokens right out of the market and locks them up, all driven by some really powerful incentives. The concept itself is pretty simple, right? When you stake your PLAZM, those tokens get locked for the duration of the cycle. You can't sell them, you can't trade them. For all intents and purposes, they just vanish from the liquid market, and that creates this supply-side vacuum. And the data, well, the data shows this vacuum is incredibly powerful. Back on day 84, we had about 1.24 million tokens staked. You fast forward to today, day 150, and that number has exploded to over 3 million tokens. The growth has just been relentless. So what's the net effect here? Well, since day 84, the staking mechanism alone has sucked an additional 1.78 million tokens out of the liquid supply. That's a huge amount of potential sell pressure that's been converted into long-term holding. So you might be asking, well, why don't people just unstake? And that's where the really clever game theory comes into play. It's called the T-squared mechanic, and it exponentially rewards people who stay staked longer. Someone staking on day 150 has almost 4 times the share power of someone who started way back on day 77. If you unstake, you give up that massive compounding advantage. It creates this incredibly powerful incentive to just stay locked. Okay, so we've covered the vacuum. Now let's talk about our second force, the burn furnace. And here's the key difference. While staking temporarily removes tokens, this mechanism removes them permanently. Here's how it works. The protocol generates revenue from things like bond yields. It then automatically takes that revenue, goes onto the open market to buy PLAZM, and then sends those tokens to a dead wallet. They're gone. Destroyed forever. This irreversibly shrinks the total supply. We're not talking about locking anymore. This is elimination. And this is where the furnace gets really interesting and kind of counterintuitive. It actually becomes more destructive when prices are lower. You can see it right here on the chart. The exact same $100 buyback destroys 76% more tokens when the price is down around 3 cents compared to 6 cents. It's this anti-fragile machine that works its hardest when the market is at its weakest. And the results really do speak for themselves. Since day 84, the burn furnace has permanently wiped out another 1.60 million tokens. I mean, that's an average of about 24,000 tokens being removed from existence every single day for the last 66 days. So we have a vacuum and a furnace. The third and final force is what we'll call LP absorption. This one is all about building a stable and deep market. But yep, it also contributes to that supply compression. So when PLAZM tokens are paired up with the protocol's other token, eShare, in the liquidity pool, they get locked down to make trading possible. Now, they're not gone forever like burned tokens, but they are taken out of the hands of individual sellers and put to work building market depth. This effectively removes them from that immediately sellable float. And this has been another really significant drain on the free supply. It's largely driven by the protocol's own automated mechanism for building liquidity, and it's absorbed an extra 870,000 PLAZM tokens into the LP since day 84, just tightening that supply even further. Okay, so Let's put it all together. We've got these three distinct forces, all operating on their own. The staking vacuum pulled in 1.78 million tokens. The burn furnace destroyed another 1.60 million, and LP absorption locked up another 870,000. And the combined result is, well, it's staggering. In just 66 days, these three forces have taken 4.25 million tokens out of the liquid's circulating supply. That is the engine driving this whole compression. And this timeline just shows you the effect so clearly. You can literally watch the liquid supply collapsing from 50% of the total down to 40%, then crashing to 27%, and finally settling where we are today at just 22%. This isn't a theory, this is a documented, quantifiable trend in action. So what's the actual real-world impact of all this? What does it mean? Well, it means that any buy pressure, especially the protocol's own automated buybacks, is now hyper-concentrated. The same dollar of buy pressure today has 78% more impact on the market than it did 66 days ago, because it's pushing against a much, much smaller pool of available sellers. Which, of course, brings us to the big question. If these forces just keep going, where does this path lead? What is the mathematical endgame of this relentless compression? Well, if we project these current rates forward, we get a pretty fascinating picture. Within the next 30 days, we could see the liquid supply drop to around 17%. By day 210, maybe it's 13%. And within the next 100 days or so, it's mathematically plausible for the liquid supply to fall all the way to 10%, or maybe even into the single digits. Now, of course, new emissions are still adding tokens to the supply, but, and this is the key, the rate of that new supply is designed to decay over time, while these three forces of removal are constant, they're ongoing. The rate of removal is structurally built to outpace the rate of addition, and that means this gap, it's just set to get wider. 1.78 million absorbed by staking, 1.6 million destroyed by burns, 870,000 locked in liquidity, 4.25 million tokens removed from circulation in 66 days, three independent forces, each driven by different mechanics, each operating automatically, none requiring market cooperation, from 50% liquid to 22%, from half free-floating to less than a quarter. And the forces don't stop. The staking vacuum pulls harder as T-squared compounds. The burn furnace runs hotter at lower prices. The LP pool deepens with every BD deployment. Three forces, one direction, compression. And that wraps up our breakdown. Again, please remember, this content is purely for educational purposes and should never be taken as financial advice. The crypto market involves very significant risk, and it is absolutely essential to conduct your own thorough research before making any decisions.